All right. Gonna do another live. This time I got the microphone because last time I guess the audio was crap. This one, I just wanted to talk about a few things because I saw a quote today that kind of triggered my mind, and it said, "You can't play it safe your whole life and expect to reach your highest potential. If you got to be willing to take some risk." And I think that's a really great place to start because I'm just curious how people out there define like taking risk with, let's say, just life in general, being successful, going after your goals, pursuing the things that you want, following your heart. It's a risky thing. And how do you balance that with practicality? How do you balance that with paying the bills, with making sure that you can do all the things that you need to do in life without just exploding the bank? And for me in my life, I've definitely been more on the risky side. I've done more risky things than I can even share. And in snowboarding and extreme sports, it really is a fine line. It's a fine line between your skill and potential and what you're willing to risk. You know, if you can do a backflip over a 20, 30-foot jump, it's a big difference between doing a backflip over a 70-foot jump. And you need to have the skills and the mindset and the just desire to want to do that. So all of those things factor in. And one of the things that came up for me also was like defining happiness and where unhappiness comes from. I've been having a really great experience in the yurt and also a really challenging experience in the yurt. I've been pretty pissed off because um, the place that I am in Nelson, British Columbia is very famous for lots of snow and really good mountain and no lineup. And all season it's just been dry. And I've watched snow in Vancouver for frig's sakes, and I've watched snow in Ontario, and I've been pissed off sometimes. And so I got to a state of like unhappiness, which I had to really reflect on because um, I stayed there for a couple days and it wasn't ideal. So I had to snap myself out of it. And when I do that, I get a little bit of a deeper lesson on what happiness actually is. And it reminds me of the time I trekked Mount Everest. And this was before I almost died. But when I decided to trek Mount Everest, I was in Nepal and I was there meditating with monks. And my idea was, well, if I want to be enlightened, I should go train with who I perceive to be enlightened beings. And those are Tibetan monks. So I booked my flight. I tried to go to Tibet, but Tibet is still occupied by China. It still is today. So we should just be aware of that and ideally solve that sometime, ideally as a global community, because that's nonsense. But besides that, I went to Nepal and I was like, okay, cool. So I went there and I was meditating with monks. I was training in Buddhism, and I was also teaching English to young kids. I would say they'd be like between 7 and 12. And then I was having conversations with older monks so they could practice their English in the afternoon. And we were discussing Buddhism, philosophy, meditation, enlightenment, and all those kind of things. And so while I was there, I realized Mount Everest was there, decided to trek Everest. And this was after I'd spent my time with the monks, which I learned a lot of really incredible things. They're very simple, very grounded, very humble. It wasn't, I think in a way was, searching for enlightenment is this mystical state of mind where I'm permanently on a cloud and my consciousness is completely different. And what I learned there and what I've learned over time is that enlightenment is closer to integrity and action and being in the moment than it is to, multidimensional awareness where you just see, I don't know, the heartbeat of everything, which is something that I'd still like to experience. I have experienced it in glimpses and, meditation and different experiences that have happened, but they were fleeting. I don't think you get to stay there. I think it's more of a perspective shift on the other side. But anyway, when I decided to trek Mount Everest, I really enjoy photos. And so I was looking up the hikes, and Annapurna Trail is supposed to be the most beautiful for photos and scenery. Then there's something called Gokyuri because there are 3 lakes on top of the Himalayas there, and you can see Mount Everest. That's really beautiful. And then the third one was Everest. But in my mind, I was like, well, I got to do Everest because that's like the big one. And so I realized I could do 2 peaks. I could do Gokyuri and I could do Everest. So I start to trek, and one day it's beautiful, it's magical. The airport going into Mount Everest is ridiculous. It's the most dangerous airport in the world, literally ranked. It's on the side of the Himalayan mountains and like up, so you have to like get your altitude correct, and it's super short. It's like the shortest runway of all time, and this is the middle of the winter. And before we take off, the guy is just like smacking off the wings because there's freaking ice on them and defrosting the window. So that was unnerving. So that was the beginning. Anyway, so 3 days up. I think it was like it took 4 or 5 days. It was 4 or 5 days to finally get to Gokuri, the first viewpoint, the top. So that could have been the whole hike. But what I did was I was going to do Gokuri, then I was going to go down a day and then go up to Mount Everest so I could do both. So on the way up, we get to Gokuri on the fourth or fifth day. I can't remember which one now. But the guides say, hey, if you want to go to the lookout point now, we could do that or we could do it in the morning. And it had been sunny the whole time. The whole trip had been sunny every morning, every day. It was super beautiful. So we didn't even think that the weather could change, and we were tired. We were walking all day. It was another like 40 minutes up or something. And we're like, no, we'll take a rest because we don't want to force it right now, and we'll check it out in the morning. So when the morning happened, you could not see your hand in front of your face. It was so foggy. You couldn't see anything. It was awful. And I was pissed. I was so mad that I had come all this way. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to see that peak again. Apparently, you're supposed to see all the Himalayas. You can see Mount Everest. It's supposed to be just the greatest view of all time. And I can't see anything. So we just, for whatever reason, we decide to go up to the lookout point, and to no avail. There's nothing there. So then we have to start walking down, because I need to do 1 day down and then 1, 2, 3 back up to Everest again. So on the way down, I can't shake this feeling of just being super unhappy, super pissed off, super upset. The universe is out to get me, victim mentality, all of that kind of stuff. And so it was on the way down, it was probably like at least an hour or 2 hours of trekking where I just could not shake this feeling of being pissed. And I was trying to do all the self-help stuff that I knew, all the spirituality mindset stuff. But the realization is, what you hear in mindset and stuff like that, but it was a deepening of the realization that I had. So the first thing that I realized why I was so unhappy was because I was not accepting reality as it was. I thought it should be different. And I'm sure you guys have heard that concept before, but that's the root of it. I thought that it should be a different way, and I was not accepting things as they were. And as a result, I was suffering. And it's not that you shouldn't like feel a certain way. You can feel angry. You can feel upset. You can feel disappointed, but you shouldn't stay there for too long. And that's kind of where I was at this winter a little bit, with just, in January 5th, I got here, no snow at all. Finally got 2 days and then nothing again, like 2 months. And they don't have any snowboard park here. And so it's really hard for me to get motivated about groomers. So I kind of got into that loop a little bit. And so first thing is to accept reality as it is, but then it's just like, how can you make the most out of this situation? Like how can you, like, when I was at the top of the mountain, I had the ideas like, can I squeeze the fun out of whatever it is, regardless? Because the reality is it's going to be perfect very rarely. Most of the time, it's probably going to be frigged up in some ways or tons of ways. And so if we can become more adaptable, and I don't know where it is, it's maybe like Denmark or something like that, but they're like, there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothing. And it makes sense. And so if you can just think about being a little bit more adaptable when challenges happen, because they're going to happen. And in Buddhism, they say the root of all suffering is desire. And I asked the Tibetan monks about that thing. And I said, hey, I desire make a difference on the planet. And I've written a book. I was writing Zen Athlete at the time. That was part of what I was doing. Is like I desire to get that book to thousands of people around the world. Is that going to cause me suffering? They're like, no, 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 that's not desire. That's not for you. So if you have a desire of contribution, if you have a desire to share what you're passionate about, if you have a desire to serve your community, that doesn't fall into the realm of desire, as the Tibetan monks were sharing with me. Also, Alan Watts says that translation isn't exactly correct. He says, rather than life is suffering, it's more like life is frustrating, which it is. Life can be frustrating. And so I've been like dealing with this again, because I really want to go snowboarding and I really want to ride POW. And I feel like the universe is just like, 2 years of not being on the board. It's just like, F you. And so I'm recycling all this memory and knowledge and getting to the root and really sitting with it. And I think like going through it is also helpful. Sometimes you don't handle things perfectly. I definitely don't, that's for sure. But I think that to reflect on it in some capacity as you move through is going to give you a deepening level of knowledge. And I feel like I've kind of received that. So what I started to do is I started to do more cold plunges. So I've been training the body in that way because the snow hasn't been so good. So I figured out some other way to test my body. And if you're in a funk, the best way that I know how to get out of it is 2 ways. Number one is to do physical fitness, just run, or walk, just get into nature, run or walk, do those things. You won't want to, just do it. It'll help. Go for like, a 2-mile walk, 10-mile walk, just walk in nature. It will help. Clears the mind, get the body going, and even better, jog. That really helps. 2, try to accept reality as it is. And, what is the lesson here? What's the silver lining? And you can also take the perspective of, when I was at the top of the mountain and the snow wasn't so good, I was like, how do I squeeze the most amount of fun into this? Like, how can I make whatever circumstance that I'm in the most amount of fun? And so, those perspectives are helpful, but then it kind of gets into the quote that I shared at the beginning is where's the balance that we have of living in a world that requires money, finances, and security in some sort of way versus following our passions, what we would love to do, what we would do if we had $1 million, what we do if we could be 100% successful, what would we do if we knew we couldn't fail. And so I think it's a balance for all of us. And I'd love to see the discussion in the chat and below and for people to discuss how they figure that out for themselves, because I think it does require risk for sure, that you do have to move towards what your passions are. Like, if you want to be a self-made entrepreneur, whatever you want to do, maybe you want to be a coach, maybe you want to start a business, maybe you want to be an artist, maybe you want to be a musician. It doesn't matter what that thing is. If you're working 60 hours a week at a job that doesn't allow you to do any of that, it's going to be pretty challenging to achieve that goal. But that job probably gives you money. But this goes into like vocation. And Alan Watts has a really great talk on that. I heard it on a song. It was something about just talking about, you do a job to make money. You show up somewhere to make money. And he's like, if you do that, you're absurd. And I know where he's coming from, but it's also challenging. What if you have things to pay for? What if you have to pay for rent and food? And me living a risky lifestyle in the sense of putting travel first. So last year I was able to train in Maine with the Native American elder all summer. It was amazing. I was able to go to Egypt with the Resonance Science Foundation and learn about ancient history, ancient cultures. I've been able to go to Sedona and meet Clifford Mahooty and these teachers that I really value, go to Envision Festival because I was called there and I knew that I needed to go and had a really profound experience. And so all of these travels and these things that I feel like I need to do, I figure it out. I put that first. I put that passion and that heart and that thing that I know I have to do. I do that first. But in doing that, my mind doesn't really think about I only have to take care of myself, basically. So, business and security and paying rent and paying the bills and paying the electrical and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes the money goes up and down. It becomes stressful. And then when I need to solve it, I end up solving it. But I have witnessed some pretty incredible miracles in moving towards the thing that I desire. But I think probably if we're speaking about balance, I might be way too far on just the do what it is that I know I'm supposed to do and not give a crap about the practical. So that's my balance. It's probably unbalanced a little bit of a different way. And that was part of what the yurt was about, was like, you know what, maybe I need to figure out how to do this as a business, because you have a podcast with 230 episodes, get about 8 million minutes listened every single month, but that doesn't translate into dollars. Patreon has helped a little bit. So thank you to all my patrons. And I never did the podcast for money. I never thought about it, how to monetize it. I never thought about it as a business. But if I'd like to continue to do that and be able to put gas in my car and be able to travel and be able to go to the places that I need to go to, I got to figure out that balance for myself and creating an offer and a service to the community in a way that resonates with me in integrity. And so if you are in the other side, if you are working a job that is not inspiring, it's not a vocation, and a vocation meaning like it's just who you are, it's what you want to do. It's like you are being you to your authentic core and you make a living from it. In Buddhism, they call it right livelihood. So what's the balance between shutting that down completely, putting on a suit and tie, so to speak? No offense if you're doing that, and moving towards that thing that's in your heart that you know that you want to do without exploding all of the stuff you worked towards. And I think that everybody's balance is going to be different. I think about the yin yang symbol, and how you've got the two colors, but there's black and white in both, and just being at the very center of that. And so if you have a passion and you want to move towards that, just start doing a little bit of it. If you're working 60 hours a week, maybe you can just work 40 and then spend the weekends working on your passion. And you do that over 2-3 years, you're going to really start to make some progress. And I'm reminded of when I went to train with the Shaolin Kung Fu masters in China. They could break stone. I have some videos on my YouTube if you want to see it. It's completely friggin' mind blowing. They could break iron over their head, stone with 2 fingers, palm strike, big stone, a big one over his head, and it's just literally superhuman stuff. And when I interviewed him, I was like trying to figure out what the trick was, and he's like, "Trick? What's a trick?" And he's like, "No trick." And I was like, "Come on, what's a trick?" He's like, "No trick." Third time, he just kind of looks at me confused and starts slamming his fingers down on the desk. He's like, "No trick." And I forget exactly how many years he said, but it's something like 5 or 8 years of qigong, hard qigong, conditioning the body. That's hard qigong, conditioning the body. So I had to punch trees, kick trees. There's dent holes in the trees from poking them. And then also meditation. So moving the energy, connecting with the body, getting very direct with your intention, focusing all of your energy. It's literally a mindset super skill that's developed over time. And what I realized in that moment, that superhuman abilities couldn't be any more ordinary, because what it actually was superhuman dedication. They were just doing an ordinary thing, poking a tree, but they were doing it for an extraordinary amount of time with an extraordinary amount of dedication. So, what if you had an idea, a passion, a vocation, a way of living, if money didn't matter, a vision in your mind, and you spent 10 years with the amount of dedication, even a fraction of the dedication it took for that Master Go is his name, to break the stone, you would be so on your way with that. But what we've done is we've shut it off, and we haven't given ourselves the opportunity to get there. And that's sad. And we are capable of more than that. And it doesn't mean that you have to shut down your job, shut down your 9 to 5, be unpractical. It means that you need to start chipping away at it. And over time, there's going to come a spot where you're going to have to go all in. It'll happen. But what'll happen is you've developed the mental acuity, the strength, the skills, the knowledge necessary to know that when you do pull the cord, that you're going to be safe on the other side. And the other just practical piece of advice, I told this to one of my good buddies, Sean, when we were doing a little chat. I was like, the Matrix will always take you back. He's a beautiful human being, investment banker. Took a couple years off because he was hating his life, and traveled, explored, um, opened up his mind, had new ideas, and then he went back to banking because he needed some money, and he got a better job with better pay, doing better work. So it took him back. So that's a practical move if you need money and also to leave in good standing. So balance is just an interesting thing. And I think we all find it in our own way. And then I think the other thing to consider in this discussion is to define success for yourself. And so that's a really important one that I think people don't really spend a lot of time on. For me, for the longest time, success was learning and experience and travel and training with who I perceive to be masters, who I perceive to be the best in the field. And it was also success in sport, in my own accomplishments, in what I was capable of, in integrating the knowledge. And so, in that success range, I have, times in my life where it goes up and down, good and bad, and it's been a roller coaster. So, but as you continue on, life changes, you have different circumstances, and then your definition of success will change. And so at that point, you can just redefine it. So what is it to you? What is success to you? And one of the things that I like to share with my clients is I send them a list of questions when we begin working together, because I think it's really important to know where you're going. Most of the time, the goals we set are very left brain logical. Like, we want this amount of money, we want this material thing, we want, this security. And that's fine. That's a part of it. But we're kind of missing the boat, because if we get all those things, does that really bring out happiness? Is that really you operating with your full potential and your full imagination and your full dream? Like when you die, will you say, hey, I really went for it? I really honored who I was. I really enjoyed my life experience. Or did I say, you know what, it got too hard. Life got too hard. I couldn't do it. And, I just give up. And so as long as you don't give up, I think that's the key. Like for me too, it's like, I kind of have to say that to myself often. It's like, all right, here I am now in this circumstance, which could be challenging. And I've had a lot of those. What am I going to do now? And so you can adapt and, could just keep going as long as you have that vision. But you got to give yourself a vision that's so strong that you're going to be willing to put in the work. Like, I don't know what Master Go's vision was to, poke a tree for hours every single day for 10 years. But if you gave a fraction of that dedication to your vision, then you are going to have a reasonable amount of progress and success over a year, over 2 years, over 5 years, over 10 years. So the questions can start with, what would I do if I couldn't fail? That's a good one. And you can journal that down. What would I do if I got $1 million a day, every single day for the rest of my life? How would I live my life? How would I wake up? Who would I be around? You can define success in terms of relationships. If you don't have any good quality friends to enjoy and share life with, it's going to probably be pretty lonely. So success for me is also friendships and the incredible people that I know on this planet. That's what I value the most. Is I value experience the most. I value connecting with people and friends, and that to me is success. But also now, because things are changing in my life personally, I have to redefine some of the things that I'm doing to make it a little bit easier on myself. And so that's just, you get back to the drawing board on what's most important and then reverse engineer it, realizing that you are capable of it. And you might fail like 1,000 times before you get there. And that's totally fine. Because that is a part of it. The failure is a part of the learning process, and it's necessary and it's a good thing. So redefining failure is probably also ideal on how you perceive failure, and how you adapt to challenges. And so then you've got the other side of the coin where you've got people who are very successful entrepreneurs, business or whatever, and they don't have a vocation, they don't have any meaning. They got all the money, they got all the stuff, but they don't feel like they're being fulfilled. And that's another way, and a challenge. But with that one, again, it's the exact same process of just what is it that you want. If you're able to be successful in entrepreneurship, you're going to be able to be successful in whatever it is you want. But that gives you the stage and the security to define, again, what is most important to you. Do you just want to go around and make so much money for no reason? Or do you want to make an impact in a way that's meaningful for you? How do you want to grow as an individual? How do you want to be as a person? What do you want to use all your skills towards? How can you move that money towards a place that does more good? And, I was watching this thing on Michael Jordan recently. I don't know why it popped up. I think I was looking at like NBA slams or motivation or something. And this thing came up about Michael Jordan. And when I learned about this, I was so sad because, man, I was such a Michael Jordan fan. And I had heard about this a few times, and then it kind of got confirmed. But Michael Jordan apparently wasn't the nicest, greatest role model or human being. And that's fine. You're allowed to be whoever you want to be. If he wants to be that way, that's totally fine. That character probably got him to how he was able to compete in the world. But the thing that was upsetting for me, I think it was I don't know if it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. It could have been. And there's a video on YouTube. I'll try to find it and plug it in the notes for you. But he's talking about Michael Jordan and how it was one of the NBA players. It could have been him. It might have been somewhere else. But he was basically saying, like, he played a whole bunch of seasons. He never had a problem with anybody, but he had a problem with Michael Jordan. And, when the way he spoke about it, it wasn't like he was like, hey, Michael's a bad person. He was just like, he had an opportunity to make such an incredible impact on community and the world and kids. And he chose materialism. He chose to be selfish, essentially, which again is not, it's not a good or bad thing. It was just his personal choice to make. And that's the world in his mind that he was living in. And that's what he needed. And that's fine. But from what I've learned and seen in doing, hundreds of interviews and training with different masters around the world and spending so much money on personal development and reading books and doing courses and programs and things like that, I haven't seen a person that I've noticed that is genuinely fulfilled, what I perceive to be enlightened. And I don't see enlightened as like Jesus Christ walking around with, the halo. I see it as a different thing. It's a lot more practical. So the people that I feel that are enlightened, that are awake, woke, if you want to use that term, happy, genuinely fulfilled. I've never seen any of them get there through the route of materialism. Like that, some people go through materialism and then have an awakening. That's a part of it. But after the awakening, materialism isn't their highest priority. It is more about contribution, who they are, cultivating their skills, cultivating their talents, imagining who they want to become, and then how they can share that knowledge or creation with other people. And when you do that, you can figure out a way to monetize it. The world will help you out in some way, but you have to at least start putting in the work. And what I'm realizing more and more is that enlightenment is more about action, and it's more about integrity, and it's more about responsibility, and all of those things. Sometimes I'm excellent at, and sometimes I am not excellent at. And the results of my life are, they usually are recording to my integrity with my practices, with where I'm going, with how hard I'm working towards my meaningful goal. So I do the goal setting and the writing it down and the affirmations and all the self-help stuff you could do, but really nothing is more important than hard work and dedication and showing up and being congruent. And there's like an old quote or story about Jesus and prayer, and the idea was that the man is talking to Jesus, and he's just like, "Hey, when things got hard, it's like footprints in the stand. When things got hard, there's only one set of footprints. Where'd you go? He's like, it was then I carried you. And I don't even think that's a nice one. But I think what I'm more thinking about is the idea that prayer, um, real prayer is like dirty boots or something. Real prayer is like work, and spirit works with you. So, when you look at any pro athlete, anybody who's been successful, they've had to put work in it, but they did it. They worked towards something that was meaningful to them. So it was still challenging work. It was still, um, you have to go through all those hurdles and things. It's not like, oh, I found my life mission and now it's just super friggin' easy. It's like, okay, yes, you've decided it. Now you're in this like crazy uh video game type of deal, and you get to problem solve all these situations till you eventually get there. The harder you work, the clearer you are, the more integrity you have, the more congruence you have in action, in word, in thought, in visualization. It's like you need all of those things. But I think now a lot of the community that I see is getting hung up on just the mindset. And myself kind of included there, where, nothing trumps hard work. But if you can go hard work with a clear, defined vision that's meaningful, that's a challenge. People need a lot of help with that. I have a heart journey hypnosis that I think is very powerful. That's designed just for that. If you want to check that out, but getting very, very clear on what your values are, where you'd like to go, what you'd like to accomplish. It's not an end goal. It's not like, oh, I want to be an astronaut, and then everything is good. It's usually a direction. Like, I want to be more involved in music or art or social justice or computers or entrepreneurship. Doesn't matter. It's a direction. And as you show up each day and actually do something with the spiritual element of like asking spirit to help, writing it down, using affirmations, using self hypnosis, using visualization, and making sure that you remove all those limiting beliefs, getting help, getting a guide, asking people, doing research. The more of that you do, the quicker you're going to go in that direction. And if you take, like I said, the Master Go example, anybody learning anything with that kind of dedication for 10 years, if they have no idea, they're going to reach a level of success, and that will be defined by them. So success isn't just about accomplishing the entrepreneurial goal or the material goal or getting the house or getting the thing or getting a certain amount of numbers. It is about your life and your lifestyle. Success for me, again, like I said, is hanging out with my friends, is being able to travel, do different things, have these experiences, do my practices, train, in the hardest way, like with doing the cold training. That for me is like not the hardest in the world, but it was like -20 one day. And that's what I wanted. I wanted it to be hard. I wanted to know what that was like. And that for me is success. That was a successful thing. And if I look at it, and there's lots of things up in this Nelson time where I was unsuccessful, and that's okay too. But I got to register that and then refocus if I want to kind of like guide where my life is going and the result that I want. So now I think I'm just saying nothing anymore. I think that's all I wanted to share. So I just invite you to consider that and to join the discussion in the comments and how you find balance in your life for pursuing your goals, or have you kind of forgot them? You don't even know where to start. And if that's where you are, you don't even know where to start. That's really, really common. And the best thing that you can do for that is to start to journal. If you want some help, you can hit me up in the comments or on my website or something. But journaling is the start. And that's when I went to Burning Man and a few other spots, I found it shocking that people didn't have those answers. They never thought about that. What would you do if money were no object? How do you want to spend your life? What are you passionate about? What do you want to learn? And so if you can get very, very clear on that, you have all the capability to reverse engineer how to make that happen over time. And so you got to get rid of the quick fix mentality, the easy mentality, and just give yourself something that's so meaningful that you'll be willing to go through all the challenges and hardships to get there. So I hope that you're having an amazing day. Thanks for watching this video. Peace, love. See you later.